Now, the point of this is most of what we think we know, we don't know. And it's wrong. And I just want you to keep that in mind. And this is not a conspiracy theorist. This is not Jim Mars's quote. This is Woodrow Wilson, a very powerful insider, an insider who was put into office by men connected to secret societies. He knew what was going on, and what did he write? Some of the biggest men in the United States are afraid of somebody. They're afraid of something. They know that there is a power somewhere so organized, so subtle, so watchful, so interlocked, so complete, so pervasive that they'd better not speak above their breath when they speak in condemnation of it. How much more do you want, folks? He's trying to tell us what's going on. So I'm going to quickly run you through the modern secret societies and how they connect, and I'm going to try to do this as rapidly as possible to get to the really good stuff. We'll start with the Trilateral Commission, which is one of the more recent ones. This was formed in 1973 by David Rockefeller and one of his henchmen, Zygmunt Brzezinski. And it was obviously an outgrowth, an extension of the even older and more secretive Council on Foreign Relations, because David Rockefeller and Brzezinski were both members. All 7 original members of the Council on Foreign Relations were members of the, 7 members of the Trilateral Commission were members of the Council on Foreign Relations. So it's safe to say that it was simply a little more open, a little more public, extension of the Council on Foreign Relations. What it also did was, because of its name, trilateral, which refers to the trilateral nations of Japan at that time, to include China now, North America and Europe, the trilateral nations. And so not only was it an effort to have a little bit more open, less secretive organization, but to also to include the Asian economies. They put out various position papers, and I particularly like the one they issued in 1975, Democracy in Crisis, where they basically said and argued that, you know, there's a little bit too much democracy in the United States, and it's just really not good for business, so maybe we need to curtail that a little bit. Now, that was 1975, and I asked some of you older folks here about my age, do we have more or less democracy in the United States today? Seems like that they're getting what they want. You might also notice that I found it interesting, the logo of the Trilateral Commission looks suspiciously like a stylized swastika. And that may not be my imagination, as you will soon see. Senator Barry Goldwater, in his book, With No Apologies, just flat stated that the Trilateral Commission is intended to be the vehicle for multinational consolidation of the commercial banking interest by seizing control of the political government of the United States. And in fact, that seems to be what exactly is going on right now, is a merging of corporate with federal government. Which brings us to George W. Bush, who I call a post-turtle. Some of you say, what's a post-turtle? Well, that's a term we have down in Texas. You're driving down a country road and you see a turtle perched up on top of a fence post. That's a post-turtle. You know he didn't get there by himself. You know somebody put him up to it. And you know he can't do anything while he's up there. And basically all you want to do is help the poor creature down. Post-turtle. If it wasn't so serious about what's going on, it really would be pretty laughable. So now that tracks back to the even more secretive Council on Foreign Relations. This was formed in 1921 by a group of people that were including Colonel House, who was the right-hand man, shadow to Woodrow Wilson, and their whole avowed purpose was to educate the American public on the desirability of global government. And why did they feel like they had to do that? Because they had already made their first attempt, the League of Nations, okay? But it didn't work. Why? Because the Senate of the United States said, I'm not sure we're ready to give up our national sovereignty. How many times have you heard the politicians in the last year or two talk about sovereignty? They don't talk about it, do they? For that matter, when's the last time you heard a national politician refer to the republic? They don't talk about that much either, do they? And while we're here, let's stop and briefly and let's explain what I'm talking about here. Oh, all they talk about is democracy. Democracy. God save democracy. We love democracy. The terrorists hate democracy. Well, what is democracy? Democracy is ruled by the majority. What's the primary example of democracy in action? A lynch mob. Okay? Everybody says lynch him, so they do. Folks, this is not what we were handed by our ancestors. This was never intended to be a pure democracy. What we are supposed to have in this country, with its Constitution, its Bill of Rights, is a democratic republic. Now, what's the difference? In a pure democracy, the lynch mob. Lynch him, okay? You string him up. In a democratic republic, you have to go through a system of laws, checks and balances, courtroom procedure. You have to give the guy a fair trial. There are certain procedures and laws that you have to follow. He has the right to meet his accuser. He has the right to defense. He has the right to cross-examine the evidence and the witnesses against him. And then if he's found guilty, then you can hang him. Okay? That's what we're supposed to have. And this is not what we have now, is it? Now they can grab you, lock you up, and if one man, John Ashcroft, who's up until 9/11's whole claim to fame was throwing covers over the bare breast of statues in Washington, D.C. because he was upset. No. Oh. Talk about a boob. I didn't say that. But on his word alone, you can be declared an enemy combatant and held without trial and without legal representation. They are stripping the liberties that we are guaranteed in this country. And it really is amazing to me, because if Osama bin Laden was indeed behind the 9/11 attacks, and there's still been no real proof that he is, but if he was, and if his goal was to destroy a democracy and to end our freedoms, he succeeded, hadn't he? But we know that some bearded guy over in a cave somewhere is not responsible for everything that's going on in the world today. Who's responsible are these people. Who's responsible are these people who have been working at this for hundreds of years. What's interesting is, notice, oops, they just cut the graphic. Can we put the graphic back up real quick? If you'll notice, over here is the CFR logo with the rider on the horse and the Roman, Latin inscription. And over here is a medallion of the ancient Knights Templars. Looks pretty close, doesn't it? Same deal. And the same objectives are going along. They consolidated all of this a long time ago with the formation of the CIA and with the National Security Act of 1947. The National Security Act of 1947 is really what began to sound the death knell for freedom and democracy in this country. It was signed on September the 27th, I believe, of 1947, and it's really interesting to see what happened there. Now, most of the things with the National Security Act of 1947 we're all kind of familiar with. We know it separated the Air Force from the Army as a separate branch of service. We know it created the CIA. We know that it changed the words, the title of the old War Department to the Defense Department, which is a pretty slick public relations move, because if you go back and look at that old War Department, oh, who wants a War Department? But under the old War Department, we only fought 3 wars. Spanish-American War, World War I, World War II. Under the Defense Department, where we're only going to defend ourselves, yeah, we got Korea, Vietnam, Kosovo, you know, Panama, Grenada, Laos, Cambodia, you know, Colombia, you name it. I think we need to go back to the War Department. We didn't have near as many wars. But within these secret societies now, and everybody that's a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, or everybody that's a member of the Trilateral Commission, they are not all sinister conspirators who are trying to take over the world, okay? A lot of them are just wannabes, you know. They want to be there. They want to be taking over the world. Or actually, I would describe it this way. Remember when you were in grade school? And the thing you really wanted most out of life was to be able to sit at the table with the cool kids in the lunchroom. Boy, if I could just be with those cool kids, maybe I could get a date for Friday night, you know? That's what you really wanted. Well, these are the people who are globbed onto these secret societies. Most of them are not on the inner core elite. They are just wannabes, and they like to be next to the wealth and the power, okay? But within each of these societies, there is a handful of people that, like, and one is David Rockefeller. He's in all of them, okay? Henry Kissinger, you know. There's certain ones who are at the inner core of all of these societies. They meet once a year in a group known as the Bilderbergers. The Bilderbergers are so secretive that they don't even really have a name. They're called the Bilderbergers because they were first discovered by the public meeting in Holland back in 1954. And they were founded by Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands, who had previously been a Nazi SS officer. And by the way, any of you all have Texaco gas cards? You do realize that Texaco is now bought by Shell. And Shell is that's the royal family of Holland, the founders of the Bilderbergers. So the New World Order marches on.